The night my life shattered, I was hiding in my own hallway, listening to my only child toast to my death. My name is Arthur Pendleton, and I am 68 years old. What you are about to hear is a story I never believed I would live to tell. Because that evening, my son, William, had no idea I was still breathing, and I had no clue my entire world was a carefully constructed lie. I can still feel the cold weight of my father's old pocket watch in my hand that night, a timepiece I'd clutched so tightly the engraving left a mark on my palm. But before I tell you what I did when I finally stepped out of the shadows, you need to understand who I was, and more importantly, who I thought he was. We often place our trust in the wrong hands. Has someone you loved ever betrayed you completely? Share your story in the comments below. I read every one. William came into this world on a crisp September morning. I can still recall the scent of pine and damp earth drifting through the hospital window. It was the height of the autumn fair, and the whole city smelled of wood smoke and candied apples. My wife, Eleanor, wept with joy. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "Arthur, you've given us our greatest blessing. This boy will be our pride." And for so many years he was. William was a bright child, the kind who would wrap his small arms around your neck and say, "I love you, Papa," without any prompting. He adored helping me in my study. When I sorted through ledgers, he would sit on the leather ottoman and hand me paper clips, one by one. "Papa, when will I get to do the accounts all by myself?" "When you're grown, my boy. But don't you worry, I'll always be here to guide you." How those words echo with a hollow ring now. We lived in a grand, old brownstone in the heart of the city. I had built a modest shipping logistics company from the ground up. We were comfortable, certainly, but we valued discretion. Eleanor always said, "Wealth is a quiet guest, Arthur, and should be a thoughtful host." William attended the best schools. He earned decent marks. He rowed crew on the river. On Sundays, we would all attend service at the old cathedral, and then have scones with clotted cream at the same tea shop, every single time. Eleanor passed when William was 25. A swift and silent illness took her from us. I remember William held me so close at the funeral, I thought my ribs might crack. "Don't fret, Papa. I will look after you. I will never let you be alone." And I, a fool, believed him. After Eleanor's departure, we learned she had left everything in perfect order. A clear estate plan, a well-managed portfolio, holdings, assets, and international accounts. The family solicitor, Mr. Albright, walked us through it in his oak-paneled office. William and I were to inherit equally, but since Eleanor knew I was weary from grief, she had named William the interim executor of it all. "It's only until you find your footing again, Father. I'm just here to ensure nothing slips through the cracks. All of this belongs to you. To us." I signed the papers without a second thought. He was my son. My faith in him was as absolute as my faith had been in his mother. The first few years were fine. William moved back into the brownstone. He claimed he didn't want me rattling around alone. We employed Mrs. Higgins, a wonderful woman from the countryside who made a sublime shepherd's pie and became a dear friend. William would leave at dawn to manage the business and return after dusk. Sometimes he'd come home looking weary, strained. I would make him a brandy and reheat his supper. "Is everything all right, son?" "Yes, Father. It's just a heavy load, but please don't concern yourself. I have it all in hand." But as seasons turned, something shifted. William started coming home later and later. He ceased joining me for meals. He stopped inquiring about my day. When I asked after the company's health, his posture would grow rigid. "Father, I told you it's all fine. Why this sudden interest?" He made me feel like a burden. He made me feel ancient, foolish, and in the way. So I stopped asking. Months drifted by. William was scarcely home. When we occupied the same room, he was always on his device. Constantly on that phone. One afternoon, as he showered, I heard his mobile buzzing incessantly on the hall table. I walked over without thinking. The screen displayed a message. "Have you spoken with the attorney yet? We need to move faster." I didn't know the number. I didn't grasp the meaning. But a tiny, fragile thing inside me began to splinter. That evening, dining alone, I looked at my father's pocket watch, which I always kept in the drawer of my desk. I held it, and without knowing why, I felt a profound sense of dread. I prayed that the unease coiling in my gut was merely the paranoia of an old man. I prayed that my son was still the boy I raised. But prayers are not always answered in the way we hope. Sometimes, the divine answers by revealing a truth we are not ready to bear. And the truth, when it arrives, cuts deeper than any deception. 2 weeks after that text, I received a call out of the blue. An invitation to deliver a keynote speech in Chicago, a conference on legacy and family enterprise. I was surprised, as I had long since retired, but the organizer was insistent. Mr. Pendleton, your journey is an inspiration. A man who nurtured his wife's vision. We want you to share your wisdom. I agreed. William, for the first time in many months, seemed almost pleased. That's wonderful, Father. A change of scenery will do you good. When do you leave? Thursday. I fly out in the evening and return on Sunday. Perfect, he said. A little too perfect. On Wednesday night, I packed my bag. Mrs. Higgins helped me press my suits. I felt a nervous flutter but also a spark of excitement. It had been an age since I'd traveled. On Thursday morning, William had already departed when I came down for breakfast. Mrs. Higgins drove me to the airport. I passed through security. I reached my gate. I sat with my briefcase and my father's watch in my hand. Then my name echoed through the terminal. Mr. Arthur Pendleton, please proceed to the airline service counter. I rose, confused. A security officer awaited me with a stern expression. Sir, there's an issue with your ticket. You are not cleared to board. What? But I confirmed it just yesterday. There's a system flag. I'm sorry, but you must resolve this before any travel is permitted. I tried to reason. I tried to call the event coordinator, but it was futile. The aircraft departed without me. I returned home dejected, with my luggage and the embarrassment of a failed commitment. It was nearly midnight when I unlocked my front door. The house was dark, silent. I left my bags in the foyer, removed my shoes, and then I heard it. William's voice, clear and loud, brimming with an emotion I had never heard from him, was coming from the library. I crept closer, soundlessly, and listened to the words that would dismantle my reality. The old man's plane went down. That $12 million fortune is finally ours. My blood turned to ice. My father's watch slipped from my fingers and struck the hardwood floor. It made a soft thud, but in that silence it was a detonation. I heard my heir celebrating my demise. As I share this, I wonder where you are listening from. Drop the name of your town in the comments below. The watch lay on the floor. And in that moment, I felt myself falling too, not in body, but in spirit, as if the very foundation of my 68 years had crumbled to dust in a single heartbeat. I remained frozen, barely drawing breath. My back pressed against the cool hallway wall, I kept listening. Yes. Yes, it's been confirmed. The flight crashed over Lake Michigan. No survivors. It was on the news 30 minutes ago. It was William's voice. My son, my only child. But he didn't sound like the young man who had embraced me at his mother's funeral. He didn't sound like the son who had vowed to protect me. He sounded triumphant. Listen, Chloe, I'm meeting with the solicitor first thing tomorrow. As the executor, there won't be any delays. The 12 million transfers directly to me. The properties, too. Everything. Chloe. I had heard that name before. William had introduced her 6 months prior. A sharp-faced young woman with designer glasses, and a handshake that felt like a cold fish. He said she was a financial consultant. I had poured tea for her. She barely took a sip. Now I understood. And if they investigate? What if someone asks questions? That was Chloe's voice. She sounded nervous, yet shrewd. They won't. My father was 68. He was traveling alone, a tragic accident. It's straightforward. Besides, the will has been in my favor since Mother died. He never bothered to amend it. He never understood the first thing about finance. He laughed. Both of them. They were laughing at me. A pain so acute lanced through my chest I thought it was my heart giving out, just as Eleanor's had. I thought, this is it. This is where it ends. But I didn't die. Something inside me fractured. Yes, but I did not die. I crouched down slowly. I retrieved the watch from the floor. I gripped it so hard the metal dug into my skin. And in that moment, I made a choice. I would not enter that room. Not yet. Because if I did, my anguish would erupt into screams, into tears, into utter desolation. And I needed more than sorrow. I needed a clear head. I retreated, step by step, like an intruder in my own home. I collected my suitcases from the entry. I opened the front door with painstaking slowness, praying the hinges wouldn't cry out. They did not. I slipped outside. I closed the door without a sound and walked to my car as if moving through a dream. I don't know how long I drove. I only know I ended up in the car park of the old cathedral, the very place where William had his confirmation, where Eleanor and I were married. It was past 2 in the morning. The cathedral was locked, but the courtyard was bathed in the faint glow of a single lamp. I sat on a granite bench and there, surrounded by silence, I began to piece it all together. The last 2 years started to make sense, like the final pieces of a sinister puzzle clicking into place. The times William had steered me away from conversations with Mr. Albright. "Father, you should rest. I'll handle it." The documents he had asked me to sign without a proper explanation. "It's just administrative, Father, trust me." The calls he would abruptly end when I entered, the sudden trips, the coldness, the distance, it had all been part of a design. And I had been the old fool who signed, who trusted, who stepped aside because I didn't want to be a bother. I had become a problem, and problems are solved. The watch was still in my hands. I looked at it under the yellow lamplight. It was an old, worn timepiece. My father had given it to me on my wedding day. "Arthur, when times are hard, don't pray for an easier path. Pray for a stronger spirit." So I prayed. I didn't pray for William to change. I didn't pray to wake from this nightmare. I prayed for the fortitude to do what must be done. When the sun began to tinge the horizon with pink, I drove home. It was almost 7. Mrs. Higgins had just arrived. She was in the kitchen, grinding coffee beans. She saw me enter with my luggage and was startled. "Mr. Pendleton, what happened? I thought you weren't due back until Sunday." "There was an issue with the flight, Mrs. Higgins. I returned last night, but it was terribly late, and I didn't wish to disturb anyone. I stayed at the club." I lied. For the first time in my life, the lie came easily. Mrs. Higgins nodded and went back to preparing breakfast. I went upstairs. I took a long, hot shower. I dressed methodically. When I descended, William was in the dining room. He had his tablet open. He was staring at the screen. The news. Plane lost over the lake. No survivors. He saw me and went rigid. The porcelain coffee cup in his hand began to rattle in its saucer. His face, I shall never forget his face. All the color drained from it. His jaw went slack. He tried to form a word, but no sound emerged. I held his gaze, and with the calmest voice I could muster, I said, "Good morning, William. Did you sleep well?" He shot to his feet so fast his chair toppled backward. He stumbled back 2 steps. And then he collapsed. He hit the floor like a sack of stones. Mrs. Higgins ran in from the kitchen, crying out, "Sir! Sir, what's happened?" But I did not move. I stood there, watching him on the floor. And I felt nothing. No fear. No panic. No paternal instinct to rush to his aid. I just felt a vast, hollow emptiness because the man lying on my dining room rug was a stranger. A stranger who had toasted my death. Mrs. Higgins splashed water on his face. She patted his cheeks. I called for an ambulance, but with a detachment that surprised even me. William revived before the paramedics arrived. He opened his eyes. He saw me, and he began to weep. "Father, father, I thought you, that the plane." "Yes, William. I know what you thought." He fell silent. The paramedics came. They checked William over. They pronounced him fine. A fainting spell, they said, brought on by severe shock. It's not uncommon. Seeing someone you believed to be deceased can trigger a powerful physical response. The irony was not lost on me. When they left, William sat on the drawing room sofa. I took the chair opposite him. I said nothing. He said nothing. The silence stretched for minutes until he finally spoke. Father, I can explain. Explain what, William? He grew flustered. He began to stammer. It's just, last night I saw the news about the flight and I thought you were on it and I was terrified and I called Chloe because I was distraught and you celebrated. He was speechless. I heard you, William. I heard every word. I never made it to the airport. I came home early. I was in the hallway. His expression shifted, the tears vanished. And for a fleeting moment, just a fraction of a second, I saw something in his eyes. Something cold. Something that frightened me. But then it was gone, replaced once more by the frightened boy, the penitent son. Father, no, it isn't what you believe. I was confused. Chloe and I have some financial pressures. And I thought terrible things, but I never truly wished for any harm to come to you. I swear it. He was lying. I knew it. But I had no proof beyond what I had overheard on a single night. So I did something I never imagined I would do. I smiled. It's quite all right, son. I understand. You were under duress. We all have moments of weakness. Don't trouble yourself. William looked at me, bewildered, as if he couldn't comprehend what was happening. You're not angry. I'm weary, William. I simply wish to rest. I stood. I went to my room and for the first time in 2 years, I turned the key in the lock. I sat on the edge of my bed. I took the watch from my pocket. And I thought, if he wants the fortune, he will have to wait. Because I was not going to die. Not yet. And when I did, my final wishes would not bear his name. But first, I needed to discover the extent of the damage he had already wrought. The days that followed were surreal. William tried to be kind. Excessively so. He brought me my morning paper. He asked after my sleep. He suggested outings. I accepted it all. I smiled. I performed the part of the oblivious father. But inside, I was conducting my own investigation. I contacted Mr. Albright. I requested a meeting. I told him I wished to review the estate documents. William found out and grew pale. What for, father? Everything is in perfect order. I merely wish to gain a proper understanding, that is all. The solicitor saw me in his office a week later, and what I uncovered stole the breath from my lungs. I still ponder if I took the correct path. What would you have done, standing in my shoes? Mr. Albright's office smelled of lemon polish and aged leather. He had been Eleanor's confidant for decades. He was a severe man, always in a three-piece suit, his fingers steepled on the desk. He greeted me with a somber smile. Arthur, it has been too long. How are you holding up? Well enough, Charles. Well enough. I sat before him. I placed the watch on my knee. I needed its solid presence. I want to examine Eleanor's estate paperwork, all of it. I need to know precisely what I possess, where it is held, and who has access. Mr. Albright studied me carefully. Something in my tone must have alerted him. Arthur, has something occurred? I did not know what to say. How does one explain that their son rejoiced at the news of their death? How do you confess you've been locking your bedroom door? So I simply said, I require the truth. The solicitor nodded slowly, opened a mahogany cabinet, and withdrew a thick binder. I will be frank with you, Arthur. Some months ago, William came to see me. He inquired about certain transactions he could perform with the accounts. I cautioned him that he required your authorization for all of it. He claimed he had it. My heart began to drum against my ribs. What sort of transactions? The solicitor opened the binder and produced several documents. He laid them before me, one by one. 3 properties Eleanor left in your name were transferred to William's name. Here are the signatures, yours and his. I looked at the papers. It was my signature, but I had no memory of signing them. When did I sign this? About 18 months ago. Do you not recall? I tried to remember. 18 months ago. William had taken me to sign some papers. He said they were annual fiduciary updates. I had signed without reading. I had trusted him. Continue, Charles. He produced another document. There have also been significant withdrawals from the investment portfolios. Large sums. 150,000. 250,000. 400,000. My mouth went dry. What is the total? The solicitor consulted a summary sheet. Over the past 2 years, approximately $3 million. $3 million. The room seemed to tilt. And I authorized this. According to the bank's records. Yes. William provided documentation with your signature for every withdrawal. But I was never aware of that. The solicitor closed the binder. He removed his spectacles. He looked at me with an expression that blended compassion and guilt. Arthur, when Eleanor passed, she asked me to watch over you to ensure no one took advantage. But you signed a power of attorney, granting William near total control. I warned you at the time. I said it was too much authority for one person. But you insisted. He was right. I recalled that day, 2 months after Eleanor's funeral, William told me we needed to streamline everything so I wouldn't be burdened. Father, trust me. I'll manage it all, just as Mother would have. And I signed because he was my son. Because I was adrift in grief. Because I wanted to believe I was not alone. Charles, what remains? He consulted another document. Of the 12 million Eleanor left, approximately 9 million remains. That is excluding the properties. 9 million. 3 million had vanished, and I had been none the wiser. Is there any recourse? The solicitor sighed. Legally, it is complex. You signed the authorizations. William is your son and the legal executor. Unless you can prove fraud or undue influence, there is little to be done without a protracted and painful legal battle. What if I alter the will? You can do that at any time, but he need not know until you are gone. I nodded slowly. I wish to change it, but William cannot know. Can that be arranged? Yes, we can draft a new will and retain it in my vault. No one will be aware until it is executed. Then let us do it. Mr. Albright looked at me with deep concern. Arthur, are you certain you are all right? Do you require assistance? Protection? I shook my head. I am fine. I need time. I lied again. I was not fine. I was in ruins. But I could not show vulnerability. Not yet. When I left that office, I walked the city streets without direction. I ended up in a public garden. I sat on a bench beneath a willow tree. The long, thin branches swayed like a curtain in the breeze. And there in that garden I wept. I wept for the son I had lost. Not to death but to avarice. I wept for the years I had spent raising him, loving him, sacrificing for him. I wept because it had all been for nothing. When I returned home, darkness had fallen. William was in the drawing room. He was waiting for me. Father, where were you? I was concerned. I had a checkup with the physician. Routine. Is everything all right? Yes, everything is fine. He kept watching me, trying to decipher my expression. I kept my gaze neutral, almost vacant. I shall have a light supper and then retire. I am tired. Of course, Father. Rest. I went up to my room. I turned the key in the lock and then I made a decision. I would not confront him, not directly, for if I did, he would find a way to manipulate me once more to convince me to sow doubt. And I could no longer afford to doubt. So I would do something different. I would act as if nothing had happened. I would be the trusting father, the grieving widower, and in the meantime, I would safeguard what remained. The following days were a performance. I smiled. I made breakfast. I asked about his day. How are the business affairs, son? Well, father. All is proceeding smoothly. I am glad. Your mother would be proud. Every word was a lie but a necessary one. At night, when William was asleep, I would venture down to his study. I would look through papers. I would search for files. I took photographs with my mobile. I did not know precisely what I sought. I only knew I required evidence. I found receipts for exorbitant restaurants, invoices for holidays, purchases of bespoke suits, all paid from the family accounts. I found printed messages from Chloe. Have you spoken with the solicitor? We require those funds before the quarter ends. Don't worry, my father suspects nothing. He's old. He doesn't comprehend. Old. That word wounded me more than any other. To him, I was merely a hindrance, a senile old man standing in the way of his windfall. I photographed everything. I saved the images in a secure digital folder. One night, while searching the drawers of his desk, I found something that chilled me to the marrow. A manila envelope. Inside was a document, a life insurance policy. In my name, for $3 million. Beneficiary, William Pendleton. Dated just 2 months prior. I stared at it for several minutes, uncomprehending. I had never signed such a policy, yet there was my signature. And then I understood. William didn't just expect me to die. He was banking on it. And he had placed a value on my death. $3 million. I returned the document. I took photographs and I retreated to my room on unsteady legs. I sat on the bed. I took out the watch and I prayed. I prayed as I had never prayed before. Not for miracles, not for William to change. I prayed not to lose my mind. I prayed for the strength to maintain the charade. Because now I knew something dreadful. If William discovered I knew the truth, my life could be in genuine peril. So I did the only thing I could. I kept being the perfect father, the naive widower, the man who suspected nothing. A week later, William invited me to dine out. Father, I want us to have an evening. Just you and I like the old days. It has been an age. A part of me wanted to refuse. It wanted to scream the truth at him. It wanted to demand how he could look me in the eye. But the other part, the part that was learning to survive, simply smiled. I would like that, son. We went to a restaurant in the financial district, one of those places with dark wood and crystal decanters. William ordered a fine claret. We raised our glasses. To us, father. To family. The wine tasted like ash. Over dinner, William spoke of his plans, ventures he wanted to pursue, investments he was considering. I listened. I smiled. I asked questions. And inside, I was counting the days, for Mr. Albright had called me that morning. Arthur, the new will is ready. When will you come to sign? Soon, Charles. Very soon. As William told me of a trip to Asia he wished to take using investment capital, I thought, enjoy this moment, son, for it is the last one where you believe you have won. That night, when we returned home, William clasped my shoulder. I love you, father. And for the first time in my life, I did not believe him. As I recount this, I think of where you might be listening. Write your city's name in the comments. There are days when life sends you signals, small, subtle, like hairline cracks in a foundation that seem insignificant until the entire structure collapses. I started seeing those cracks everywhere. A fortnight after our dinner, Mrs. Higgins approached me. It was mid-morning. William had left early, as usual. Mr. Pendleton, I apologize for the intrusion, but I found this while tidying Mr. Williams' study. She held out a crumpled slip of paper. It looked as if it had been fished from the waste bin. I unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten note. A woman's script. The paper smelled of a cloying, sweet perfume. My love, I cannot bear this waiting. We must conclude this soon. I have waited for 2 years. You promised me that once he was gone, we could be together in the open. I love you, see. Chloe. Mrs. Higgins looked at me with worry. Sir, I did not wish to interfere, but it seemed odd, and I have remembered, that young lady comes to the house when you are not here. A chill ran down my spine. How many times has she come, Mrs. Higgins? Several, sir. Sometimes they remain in the drawing room. Sometimes they go up to Mr. Williams' room. I was silent. Mrs. Higgins looked down. I am sorry, sir. I did not wish to keep it from you, but Mr. William told me you were aware she was his fiancée, and that they were to be married soon. Married? With his deceased father's money. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. You did the right thing by telling me. Mrs. Higgins left the room. I was left with the note in my hands. Once he was gone. Not when I was ready to grant him the funds. Not when I decided to step back. When I was gone. Meaning when I was dead. I placed the note in the same envelope where I kept the photos of the life insurance and the documents I had uncovered. The evidence was mounting, but I still did not know what to do with it. That afternoon, I resolved to do something I had never done. I followed my own son. William told me he had a business dinner across town. He would leave at 3:30 and return late. At 3:45, I took my car and trailed him. I kept a safe distance. Thank heavens for the city's chaotic traffic, it is easy to blend in. William did not go across town. He drove to a modern apartment complex in a newly developed neighborhood, a sleek building with a concierge and underground parking. I parked on the opposite side of the street and waited. 10 minutes later, I saw Chloe emerge from the building. She was wearing a tailored dress and stiletto heels. She looked thrilled. William got out of his car. He embraced her. He kissed her, not a chaste kiss. He kissed her with the passion of someone who shares a life, who makes plans, who envisions a future I was apparently obstructing. They entered the building together. I sat in my car for 2 hours. When they re-emerged, they were laughing. William carried a bottle of champagne. They said goodbye with another lingering kiss. And then William took out his phone and made a call. I cracked my window to listen. Though he was distant, I caught fragments. Yes, today the solicitor indicated we can expedite. I just need him to sign one final document. One final document. My heart hammered against my chest. What document? For what purpose? After William drove off, I wrote down the building's address. The Apex Towers, Unit 1201. I returned home before him. Mrs. Higgins was preparing supper. Sir, are you feeling well? You look pale. I am fine, Mrs. Higgins. Merely tired. I went upstairs. I closed my door. And then I did something I never envisioned I would do. I contacted a private investigator. I found one online, a man named Mr. Shaw. His website promised, discretion assured, corporate and domestic inquiries. I called him from my mobile. He answered on the third ring. Good afternoon. Shaw Investigations. How may I be of service? I did not know where to begin. I need you to look into someone. Who, sir? I swallowed. My son. There was a brief silence. I understand. Can you provide more details? I told him everything, or nearly everything. I told him of the missing money, of Chloe, of the life insurance, of the call I overheard the night my plane was supposed to have crashed. The investigator listened without interruption. When I finished, he said, Sir, what you are describing is potentially quite serious. Are you certain you wish to proceed? What we uncover may cause you further pain. It already does. I want the complete truth. Very well. I need you to email me all the information you possess. Full names, addresses, contact numbers, photographs of documents, everything you have gathered. How long will you require? Give me 1 week, perhaps 2. What are your fees? He quoted a figure. It was substantial, but I no longer cared about the cost. Agreed. Proceed. That night, William arrived late. He carried the scent of perfume, the same cloying scent from the note. He found me in the library, attempting to read, a ruse to keep my hands and mind occupied. Hello, father. Have you eaten? Yes, son. Mrs. Higgins left a plate for me. Splendid. He sat near me. He watched me pretend to read. What is that you're reading? An old history of the city. Winter is coming, good to have indoor pursuits. He fell quiet. For a moment, I saw a flicker on his face. Something akin to guilt, but it was swiftly gone. Thank you, father. Always so thoughtful. You are my son. It is what I do. He kissed my forehead and went upstairs. I kept my eyes on the page, but I did not read a single word, for I knew the boy he once was could not be summoned back. Betrayal does not always come from an enemy. The following days were a silent torment. William brought me papers to sign. Minor formalities, he claimed. I scrutinized them more carefully than ever. Some were legitimate, others were not. Father, this is simply to renew the license for the lake house. I read the document. It said nothing about a license. It was an authorization to transfer the deed entirely into his name. William, this states I am gifting the property, not renewing a license. He tensed. Oh yes. It's a legal nuance. Pertains to tax efficiency. Do not worry. I will not sign this. His face darkened. For a second I saw fury. Why not? Do you no longer trust me? It is not that, son. I merely wish to comprehend it fully before I sign. But father, I have managed everything for you all this time. I have handled it all, and now you spring this on me. I only wish to read it thoroughly. Perhaps I will have Mr. Albright explain it to me. William stood up abruptly. You know what? Never mind. It is of no consequence. I will find another way. He stormed from the room. I was left with the document in my hands. And I knew I had erred. I had shown him I was doubting, that I was awakening, and that was dangerous. That night, I heard raised voices from William's room. He was on the phone. He was speaking in hushed but angry tones. I crept up the stairs. I stood near his door. No, Chloe. She wouldn't sign it. She started asking questions. Yes. Yes, I know. This is becoming complicated. I cannot force her. If she grows suspicious, she could go to the solicitor and alter everything. We must be more clever. Silence. He was listening. No, we cannot wait that long. We have been at this for 2 years. I am sick of it, too. Look, let me think. There must be another method. Another method. Another method to accomplish what? I descended the stairs without a sound. My heart was pounding so violently I feared he would hear it. I entered my room. I locked the door. And I took my father's watch in my hands. Father, if you can see me from wherever you are, grant me guidance. I do not know what to do. I do not know how to escape this. The next day, I received a call from the investigator, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Pendleton, I have found something. We must meet. Can you come to my office this afternoon? What did you find? I would prefer to discuss it in person. I agreed. At 4 o'clock, I was seated in his office, a small, tidy space with a neat desk and a modern computer. Mr. Shaw was a man in his late 40s, with a grave demeanor but kind eyes. He placed a folder before me. Sir, what I am about to show you is not easy. Are you prepared? I nodded. He opened the folder. The first photograph was of William and Chloe entering a bank. The second was of them leaving a registrar's office. The third was a document, a marriage certificate. William and Chloe were married. They had been married for 5 months. I felt the floor fall away beneath me. Married? Yes, sir. They were wed in a civil ceremony in a neighboring state. Quietly. No guests. But he never said a word. Mr. Shaw produced more documents. There is more. Chloe has considerable debts. Multiple maxed-out credit lines, a personal loan for $150,000 that is in default. And her family, well, her family has legal troubles. Her brother is under investigation for embezzlement. He showed me digital news clippings, notes about Chloe's brother being implicated in an investment scam. They need capital, sir. A significant amount and quickly. Mr. Shaw produced another photograph. This one shattered me. It was William and Chloe at a luxury watch boutique, examining a timepiece that likely cost more than a car. The salesman was presenting them with papers. This was taken 4 days ago. They are purchasing a luxury item. Price, $120,000. It is to be charged to an account in your name. I could not breathe. Is there more? Mr. Shaw nodded, his expression grim. Sir, I found something more severe. Your son has been researching facilities to place you in a long-term care home. Expensive establishments, yes, but homes for individuals with advanced cognitive decline. It appears he is building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. If he succeeds, he would assume total legal control over everything, without requiring your signature. I was speechless. It all made sense now. The papers he brought me to sign, the insistence, the rush. And when I began to resist, he shifted tactics, to have me declared unfit, to have me locked away, and to take it all. Sir, there is one more thing you should be aware of. Mr. Shaw produced a final document. Your son took out a substantial loan, using one of your properties as collateral. A loan for $800,000. If he does not repay it within the next 90 days, you forfeit the property. Which property? The lake house. The one your wife purchased for your 30th anniversary. The house where you and Eleanor spent your summers. The house where William learned to sail. The house brimming with memories. William had leveraged it, and it was on the verge of being lost. I closed the folder. I could look no more. What should I do, Mr. Shaw? That is your decision, sir. I have only provided the information. But if you ask my opinion, you need to protect yourself, legally and perhaps physically. Physically. When people are cornered, they can act in unpredictable ways. And your son is very much cornered. I left that office like a specter. I drove through the city streets aimlessly. I cried until I had no tears left. And then, sitting in gridlock traffic, I made a decision. I would pretend no longer. I would not wait, for if I waited any longer, it might be too late. I had to act, and I had to do it soon. That night, I called Mr. Albright. Charles, I need to see you first thing tomorrow. And I need you to prepare something more than a will. What do you require, Arthur? I need to salvage what remains. And I need my son to never touch another cent of what was Eleanor's. Understood. I will see you at 9. I ended the call. I looked at the watch on my nightstand and I whispered, "Forgive me, son, but this ends now." I still wonder if I chose correctly. What would you have done, if you were me? I did not sleep that night. I remained awake, seated on my bed with the investigator's folder on my lap. I opened every document. I read every caption. I examined every detail. William, secretly wed. Debts. Schemes to institutionalize me. The lake house, mortgaged. $3 million, gone. And I who had signed it all, who had trusted, who had relinquished control of my life because I believed my son would care for me. The full truth was laid bare before me. Clear. Brutal. Unavoidable. But what pained me most was not the wealth. It was the deception. It was knowing that every embrace had been calculated. Every "I love you, Father" had been a falsehood. Every gesture of concern had been an act. Because to him, I was merely a barrier between his ambition and his new existence. I glanced at the clock. It was 5 in the morning. In 4 hours, I had my appointment with Mr. Albright. I rose. I took a long bath. I dressed with care. A charcoal gray suit that Eleanor had chosen for me years ago. Silver cufflinks. My hair combed back. I looked at my reflection. I did not recognize the man staring back. I was no longer the naive widower, the trusting father. I was someone new, someone hardened, someone who had learned to survive. I placed my father's watch in my pocket, along with the investigator's folder. I descended the stairs. Mrs. Higgins was in the kitchen, brewing tea. "Good morning, sir. Are you going out?" "Yes, Mrs. Higgins. I have an important engagement." "Does Mr. William know?" "No. And if he asks, tell him I have gone to the physician." Mrs. Higgins nodded. She had learned not to question. I left the house before William awoke. The morning commute was dense. The streets were filled with people beginning their days. Life continued its mundane rhythm while mine was both collapsing and being rebuilt. I arrived at Mr. Albright's office at 8:30. I was the first client. His secretary offered me tea. I accepted but did not drink it. I merely needed something to hold. At 9 sharp, the solicitor received me. He closed the door. He sat across from me. "Arthur, tell me what has happened." I placed the folder on his desk. What happened is I retained a private investigator and discovered the full truth. The solicitor opened the folder. He reviewed each document in silence. When he finished, he removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "My God, Arthur. This is far worse than I feared. I know. Does William know that you know? No. I have been acting as if all is normal, but I cannot continue. I must act now before it is too late. The solicitor nodded. Very well. We shall do the following. First, we will completely rewrite your will. William will receive nothing. Not a single dollar. Second, we will revoke all powers of attorney you granted him. You will regain full control of your accounts, properties, and assets. Third, we will initiate a forensic audit of everything he has managed these past 2 years. We must document every transaction, every withdrawal. And the lake house, the one he mortgaged. We will settle that debt before you lose it. Then we will transfer the property into a trust in your name, a trust William cannot touch. How long will this take? If we expedite, 2 weeks, perhaps 3, and if William attempts something during that time. The solicitor looked at me gravely. That is why I must also suggest something you may not like. What? That you vacate your home temporarily while this is resolved. It is for your safety. I will not leave my home. It is my home. Eleanor and I built a life there. Arthur, I understand. But your son is desperate, and desperate individuals can be unpredictable. I know. The investigator said the same. But I will not flee my own home. I will not grant him that victory. The solicitor sighed. Very well. But please be cautious. Do not consume anything he prepares. Do not be alone with him in isolated areas. And if you feel something is amiss, call me at any hour. I nodded. We spent the next 3 hours working. I signed documents. I revoked powers. We drafted a new will. All the remaining capital, all the properties, all the assets were to be donated to charitable foundations, to children's hospitals, to shelters for the homeless, anywhere the money could perform good, except to William. Are you entirely certain about this, Arthur? There is no going back. I have never been more certain of anything in my life. When we finished, the solicitor placed all the documents in his vault. No one will know of this until it is necessary. Thank you, Charles. Arthur, I am so sorry you are enduring this. Eleanor was my friend, and I know she would be proud of your courage. I left that office feeling something peculiar. It was not relief. It was not satisfaction. It was peace. A cold, sorrowful peace. Because for the first time in a very long time, I had seized control of my life. I drove home. But first I took a detour. I went to the cathedral, the same one where I had sat that night after hearing William toast my death. It was noon. The cathedral was nearly empty, only an elderly man praying in a pew, and a verger arranging candles. I sat in the back. I took the watch from my pocket and I prayed. I prayed for my son, for the boy he once was. I prayed for Eleanor, for her soul, for her legacy. And I prayed for myself, for the strength to face what was to come, for I knew the most difficult part still lay ahead. I knew I would have to look him in the eye. I would have to confront him, and I would have to speak the truth. When I finished praying, I sat in silence, gazing at the stained glass window. And I thought, even the most steadfast faith can be tested by those closest to us. Perhaps suffering is an inescapable thread in the tapestry of life. But so, too, is resilience. I left the cathedral with the sun high overhead. The sky was a clear, brilliant blue. Everything appeared so ordinary, so tranquil, as if the world was oblivious that my life had been irrevocably altered. I arrived home at 3. William was in the drawing room, on his laptop, speaking on the phone. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call. Father, where were you? I looked for you this morning. I had an appointment with the doctor. Some tests. Is everything all right? Yes, everything is fine. He studied me suspiciously, as if trying to read my thoughts. Are you certain? You seem different. Merely tired. I went upstairs without another word. I closed the door, and then I saw something I had not noticed before. On my bedside table, next to the lamp, was a small bottle of pills. It was not mine. I picked it up. I read the label. Lorazepam, prescribed for anxiety and sleep disorders. Where had this come from? I had never taken lorazepam. I had never been prescribed it. I opened the drawer of the nightstand. I checked. There were more pills, a full box, hidden beneath a stack of handkerchiefs. A cold dread washed over me. William had placed those pills there. Why? And then I remembered. 3 days prior, William had made me a cup of tea. He insisted I drink it. It will help you sleep more soundly, Father. You seem so tense. I drank it, and that night I slept a deep, drugged sleep from which I awoke groggy, and with a throbbing head. Had he been medicating me? The thought turned my stomach. I took the pill bottle and put it in my pocket. Evidence. I went back downstairs. William was in the kitchen. Father, would you like me to prepare you something for dinner? No, thank you. I am not hungry. But you must eat something. Look, Mrs. Higgins made a lovely potato leek soup. Your favorite. No, William, truly. I am fine. William pressed. At least some tea. I will make you a cup. No, William. I said no. My voice was sharper than I intended. William froze. He stared at me. Is something the matter, Father? No, nothing. Why would you think that? You have been distant lately. Withdrawn. I am simply tired. Or perhaps, suspicious. The air grew thick with tension. Why would I be suspicious? William took a step toward me. His voice grew cold. I do not know, Father. You tell me. I looked into his eyes, those eyes that had once gazed at me with affection. And in that moment, I knew that he knew. He did not know what or how much, but he knew something had changed. No, son. I have nothing to tell you. Are you certain? Certain. We stood regarding one another in silence, like two adversaries taking each other's measure, until Mrs. Higgins entered with a basket of laundry and broke the spell. William offered that practiced, false smile. Well, if you need anything, I am here. He went upstairs. I remained in the kitchen, trembling. Mrs. Higgins looked at me with worry. Sir, are you quite all right? Yes, Mrs. Higgins. I am fine. But I was not, for I had just realized something terrible. William suspected. And if he suspected, he would act, and I did not know how much time I had before he did something drastic. That night, I ate nothing from the kitchen. I went out and bought a simple meal from a deli, locked my door, wedged a chair under the knob as a precaution, and slept with my mobile in my hand, Mr. Albright's number ready to dial, for I no longer knew what my son was capable of. And that was the most terrifying realization of all. The next few days were a silent duel. William watched me. I watched him. Neither spoke of it, but we both understood a storm was brewing. One morning, I came down for breakfast and found a brochure on the dining table. I opened it. It was for a senior living community. Golden Years Manor. Specialized care for seniors with memory care needs. There was a handwritten note. Father, I've been thinking. Perhaps you should consider a place like this. Round-the-clock nursing. Activities, companionship. You might be happier. Think it over. With affection, William. I crumpled the paper. It was not a suggestion. It was a threat. Cooperate, or I will have you committed. But what William did not know was that I was already several moves ahead. I called Mr. Albright. Charles, I found pills in my room, and a brochure for a care home. He is making his preparations. Arthur, the legal papers are nearly ready. We just require the bank signatures to transfer control. Give me 3 more days. Just 3. And what if I do not have 3 days? Then you must leave that house immediately. I ended the call. I looked around. My house, my home, the place where I had raised my son, where I had loved my wife, where I had built my life. And I thought, no. I will not run. I have run enough. That afternoon, I made another decision. I decided I would not wait for William to make his move. I would make mine. And the time had come, for that very night, I would confront him. I would tell him the truth, that I knew everything, that he had lost, and that he would never again touch a dollar of his mother's legacy. I ate a solitary dinner in my room, a sandwich from the deli, bottled water I opened myself. I put on the same gray suit I had worn to the solicitor. I combed my hair. I splashed water on my face. I took my father's watch and clenched it in my fist. Father, grant me strength, for tonight, it all ends. I went downstairs at 8 o'clock. William was in the drawing room, watching the evening news. I sat in the chair facing him and with the steadiest voice I could manage, said, William, we need to talk. He muted the television. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something that froze the blood in my veins. Fear. The silence between us stretched for long seconds. William looked at me. I looked at him. The only sound was the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, a clock Eleanor had brought from her family home. A clock that had marked so many moments of our family's story. Now it was marking the end. Talk about what, father? His voice was cautious, like a man testing thin ice. I took a deep breath. I squeezed the watch in my jacket pocket. About the truth, William. About the whole truth. He adjusted himself on the sofa. He crossed his legs. He tried to appear relaxed, but his hands trembled slightly. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. I held his gaze without blinking. I know you are married to Chloe. I know you have been secretly married for 5 months. I know she has immense debts. I know her family has legal problems. I know you mortgaged the lake house without my knowledge. I know $3 million has disappeared over 2 years. I know you took out a life insurance policy on me for $3 million. I know you planned to have me declared incompetent and placed in a care home. And I know, my voice wavered slightly, but I pressed on, and I know that the night you believed my plane had crashed, you celebrated. You celebrated my death, William. I heard you. I was in the hallway. I heard every word. The color fled from his face. He turned a ghastly pale. His mouth opened. It closed. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Finally, after what felt an eternity, he said, Father, I know. I raised my hand. I do not want excuses. I do not want lies. Not any longer. I only want you to answer one question. Why? Why did you do this to me? William lowered his head. His hands gripped the sofa's upholstery. When he looked up at me again, his eyes were wet. Because it was never enough. What? Everything Mother left me, everything we had, it was never enough. He stood from the sofa. He began to pace the room. The words now tumbled out in a torrent. My entire life, I lived in his shadow. Your father built this. Your father achieved that. Your father, your father, your father. I was just the son who had to be worthy. Do you have any idea what that is like? William, no, let me finish. His voice rose. I had never seen him like this, unraveled, desperate. When Mother died, everyone expected me to be him, to run the companies, to manage the wealth, to be the man of the family. But I am not him, Father. I never was. And the businesses began to falter. I made poor investments. I lost money, a great deal of money. And why did you not tell me? I would have understood. We could have found help together. William let out a bitter, broken laugh. Tell you. Tell the perfect widower that his son was a failure. I could not. I could not bear to shatter your image of me so completely. So you decided to steal from me. You decided to deceive me. You decided to wish for my death. I did not wish for your death, he shouted. I heard quick footsteps. Mrs. Higgins appeared in the doorway, alarmed. Sir, is everything all right? Yes, Mrs. Higgins, you may return to the kitchen. Thank you. Mrs. Higgins looked at me uncertainly but nodded and retreated. William ran a hand through his hair. He was breathing heavily. When you heard that call? I was in shock. I had seen the news about the flight, and I thought you were on it. It was horrific. And yes, I called Chloe, but not because I wanted you dead. It was a reaction, a moment of profound weakness. You said, finally. You said the 12 million was yours, finally. That is not shock, William. That is relief. He fell silent. And then, when I returned alive, you fainted. Do you know what I thought in that moment? I thought it was from joy, from the shock of seeing me. But it wasn't, was it? You fainted from horror, from fear, because your scheme had failed. There was no scheme. William, you were drugging me. I took the pill bottle from my pocket and tossed it onto the coffee table. It skittered and fell to the floor. Lorazepam. In my room. In my tea. How many times did you drug me? How many times did you have me sign papers while I was in a fog? William looked at the bottle. He did not deny it. I just wanted you to sleep better. You were anxious. Lies. My voice was cold now, devoid of emotion. You wanted to confuse me. You wanted it to appear as if I were losing my faculties, so that when you tried to have me institutionalized, it would be simpler, so the doctors would see a confused old man who took medication and could not remember. William sank back onto the sofa, buried his face in his hands, and began to sob. Not like the boy who cried when he scraped his knee. Not like the young man who wept at his mother's funeral. He cried like a man who knows he has lost everything. I'm sorry, Father. I am so sorry. I never wanted it to come to this, but the debts, Chloe, her family, it all spiraled out of control, and I did not know how to stop it. I walked over to him. I sat in the chair opposite the sofa, and in that moment, I felt something strange. Pity. Not for his actions, but for what he had become. A broken, weak man, ensnared in his own web of lies. William, look at me. He lifted his face. His eyes were red, his cheeks wet. Do you know what hurts the most? It is not the money. It is not the properties. It is that you saw me as an obstacle, as something to be removed. I gave you life. I raised you. I loved you with all that I had. And to you, I was just a foolish old man in your way. No, Father. Never. Yes. Yes, you did. I saw the messages. He's old. He doesn't understand. Those were your words. William closed his eyes. He could not even look at me. I am sorry. Do not ask for my forgiveness, William, for I cannot give it. Not now. Perhaps never. I stood. I walked to the window. I looked out at the night. The city's lights glittered in the distance. Yesterday, I went to see Mr. Albright. I changed my will. Everything. Absolutely everything that remains is being donated to charitable institutions, to children's hospitals, to shelters for the homeless, to any place where the money can perform the good your mother would have wanted. I heard William stand up abruptly. What? No. You cannot do that. I already have. I also revoked every power of attorney I gave you. You no longer have access to anything. The accounts, the properties, the investments, all are frozen. And the lake house, the one you mortgaged, has been paid off with my funds and placed in a trust you can never touch. William stood motionless, processing. But I need that money. Chloe's debts, the loans. I will lose everything. Yes, you will lose everything, just as I have lost everything. The difference is that what I have lost cannot be recovered. I lost my son. I lost trust. I lost years of my life believing in someone who was only using me. I turned to face him. And now I want you to leave. What? I want you to leave this house tonight. Pack your belongings and go. Father, you cannot be serious. This is my home, too. No, this is the home your mother and I built with our labor, our love, and she left it to me. You were only a temporary steward, and that privilege is revoked. William took a step toward me. His face changed. It was no longer pain. It was rage. This is your fault. What? Yes. Yours. If you were not so controlling. If you were not so clinging to mother's money. If you had given me my share when it was due. Your share. My God, William. Everything was your share. Half of it all. 12 million properties. And it was not enough because greed is a bottomless pit. I deserved more. I was her son. I maintained the companies. No, William. You ran them into the ground. And then you stole from me to conceal your failures. We stood face to face. Two strangers. Two adversaries. He was no longer my son, and I was no longer his father. We were just two people who had lost it all. If you do not leave tonight of your own volition, I will contact my solicitor tomorrow to begin legal proceedings. And believe me, with the evidence I possess, it will not take long. William clenched his jaw. You know what? I am leaving. I am leaving. And I hope I never see you again. The feeling is mutual. He stomped up the stairs. I heard drawers slamming, objects being thrown, curses muttered. I remained in the drawing room, seated, the watch in my hands. Mrs. Higgins appeared once more. Sir, is Mr. William truly leaving? Yes, Mrs. Higgins. And are you all right? I looked at the watch, the worn metal, the same watch my father had held through his own trials. I will be in time. Half an hour later, William came down with 2 large suitcases. He paused at the foot of the stairs. We looked at each other one final time. I waited. I do not know what I waited for. An apology, perhaps. Remorse. A flicker of humanity. But what I saw in his eyes was only bitterness. You will regret this. No, William. The one who will regret it is you. He walked to the door. He opened it. He hesitated for a second. Goodbye, Father. I did not reply. He closed the door. And he was gone. I heard his car start, the sound of the engine fading into the distance, and then, silence. An immense, hollow, absolute silence. I stayed there, seated in the drawing room where we had shared so many meals, where I had watched my son grow, where I had laughed with Eleanor, where we had been a family. And I wept. I wept as I had not wept throughout this entire ordeal. Because it is one thing to uncover betrayal. It is another to lose your child. And even though he had wounded me so deeply, even though he had used me and lied and stolen, he was still my son. The infant I had cradled in my arms. The boy who called me Papa and hugged me tightly. The young man who wept when his mother died. All of that was gone. Dead, as if he had truly perished in that plane. Mrs. Higgins sat beside me. She put an arm around my shoulders without a word. She simply stayed. And I let the tears fall. All the pain, all the fury, all the loss. I cried until I was empty. When I finally grew calm, Mrs. Higgins prepared a pot of tea. This one, I could drink without fear. Mr. Pendleton, you did what was right. Yes. Yes. Sometimes, love means letting go, even when it breaks your heart. I nodded. I drank the tea slowly. It was hot, comforting. I looked at the clock. It was nearly 11. Mrs. Higgins, you may retire. I will remain here a while longer. Are you sure, sir? Yes. Thank you for everything. Mrs. Higgins went up to her room. I stayed in the drawing room. I turned out the lights. I left only a single lamp burning in the corner, and I sat in the dimness, thinking, remembering, making my peace with all that I had lost. The house felt different now, emptier but also more truly mine. There were no more lies. There was no more danger. There was no longer someone waiting for me to die. For the first time in months, I could breathe. I stood. I walked through the house. I touched the walls, the furniture, the photographs. I stopped before a picture of Eleanor, William, and myself. Taken at the lake house. William was perhaps 12. We were all smiling, radiant. Eleanor, I do not know if I chose rightly, but I did what I felt I must. I hope, wherever you are, you can understand. I kissed my fingertips and pressed them to the glass. I went up to my room. For the first time in weeks, I did not lock the door. There was nothing left to fear. I lay down. I looked at the ceiling and I thought, this is the end. It is over. Now I can begin to heal. But I was mistaken, for the end had not yet arrived. And karma was only just beginning its work.